it's week 2 of NFL fantasy football, and we're a little late to the party, but we decided, why not get started now and express some of our takes.
We have to have an introduction.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that our introduction? We're late to the party.
It could be. Well, my name's Mark,
My name's Mark.
and this is the M&M show.
We're not sponsored.
We're not.
Yet.
No, not at all. So we have a list of our winners, our losers, some wild card picks, and we'll end with some of our just takeaways leading up into week 3 and our biggest takeaways of week 2.
We're going to get started with your winners from week 2.
Yep, let's get right into it. So we'll start with the QBs. I selected 3 QBs. First, Kyler Murray, just the highest point scoring QB.
Big game.
Massive victory for him. Baker Mayfield, just one of the top performing fantasy QBs up to now, and same with Derek Carr, who's my third pick. So just a little unexpected from Baker and Derek Carr, and it's surprising that we just don't have some bigger names here.
See, to me, I would put Derek Carr in the wild card category each and every week. If you're listening to this, Derek Carr, I'm sorry, I just don't believe in you. Kyler Murray's got the tools, right? He's legit dual threat quarterback. Marvin Harrison Jr. looks like the real deal after week 2, definitely not after week 1. And Baker Mayfield has been insane to start the season. I agree
completely. Let's hear your winners.
I have different winners outside of Baker Mayfield. Again, what the Bucs have been doing in Tampa is really, really impressive. Chris Godwin's having a renaissance year. Mike Evans is Mike Evans, and I'm big on Jalen McMillan. So Baker Mayfield is one from week 2. I have Patrick Mahomes as a winner from week 2, and hear me out because
Okay.
I know he did not have a good game.
I don't
have no
understand
idea
this
how
one, but let's hear it.
the Chiefs escaped with a win. Call it rigged. Pacheco's out. Pacheco's out for a while, and I am high on Rashee Rice, and I feel like the Chiefs are only going to have to pass more, and Patrick Mahomes is only going to get more settled in with this offense and with this receiving core. A lot of questions around Travis Kelce, but I do think, as bizarre and horrible as it is, that Patrick Mahomes' fantasy output benefits from Pacheco going down. I also have Jaden Daniels as a winner, and in this case, he's just playing turnover-free football. He's not playing great. I don't believe he's thrown a passing touchdown yet, but the kid's got wheels. And Brian Robinson Jr. had a huge game in week 2, and the Commanders are looking like an actually decent team. I know they had to win with 7 field goals. They didn't even get an offensive touchdown. And they were playing the Giants. So a lot of asterisks there. But
New York was missing their kicker dearly.
Yeah, they probably regretted trying him out there with a hamstring injury. But high on Patrick Mahomes. I think Jaden Daniels continues to play well, maybe not perfectly, but play well. And Baker Mayfield's been tearing it up.
Yeah, just love what I'm seeing from Baker. Again, just really shutting down the doubters, such as Cleveland and Carolina. I mean,
terrible organizations.
Yeah. Let's move into the running backs now. So there's no secrets that Alvin Kamara was just a machine.
Disgusting.
It's, I was low on Kamara coming into the year. I'm sure you were too, as we previously discussed. And to see him just being the RB1 to this point is just unfathomable.
Yeah, I mean, the entire Saints offense has been crazy. And Kamara, everyone talks about age catching up to running backs. It does not seem to have caught up to him right now. He had a monster game in week 2.
We are fools.
Who else you got?
We got James Cook. I have James Cook as a winner, partly because the guy had 2 rushing touchdowns last year altogether, and he did that in one single game. Just seeing where the Bills are in their offense and how Josh Allen is kind of running things, literally running things. Um, I think it's only going to help James Cook moving forward into the season. So it was just very nice to see that he's already had that breakout performance so early into the year.
I'm curious how much the hand injury Josh Allen suffered in Week 1 is going to impact the rest of the season. I mean, Josh Allen is still going to run. He's still going to vulture rushing touchdowns from James Cook. But I'm curious if that's contributing to James Cook getting more rushing opportunities inside the goal line.
Maybe even short yardage receptions.
Yeah.
So promising stuff there. Devon Achane, just a fantasy machine. Obviously, the Dolphins are in bad shape right now, but Achane's that one shining light that you can count in on week in, week out. For my next pick, number 4, Ramondre Stevenson. This is a guy that I've always liked throughout the years, even though the performances haven't always been there when I've drafted him. However, this year just seems to be a different story with I haven't seen a single Patriots game yet, so I'm not sure what it is, but I see 20 points on Ramondre Stevenson, and it just brings a smile to my face. And last but not least, I have Jordan Mason. Just, you can't go wrong with the San Francisco 49ers. Running back, obviously McCaffrey, disappointing, unanimous first-round pick for many people in the fantasy community. So if you got Mason on your team, you're in pretty good shape no matter what you might be missing.
It's the Madden curse, man. I'm telling you, I'd refuse it. I've got Kamara, Achane, and Jordan Mason all up there as well, so I'm not going to hash all of that out. I will say with Jordan Mason, I'm curious throughout this season if he's going to continue to get better or if he'll be more of a volume back for the 49ers, especially with their receiving core having injuries with Debo.
Something else to mention is when McCaffrey gets back, if he gets back, will Mason still have some sort of role? Will there be a committee there? Something to look out for.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't think it'd be a straight 50-50 split, but I think in the interest of preserving McCaffrey, the 49ers are looking towards the playoffs. They want to do another long run. I think they know that their core is getting older and more expensive. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Mason continuing to get touches. The 2 other running backs I have as winners for week 2, I've got Brian Robinson Jr. Again, big back, quick back. He had, I think, somewhere around 130 yards rushing. It's promising. I think with the threat of Jaden Daniels taking off as well, he's going to have more opportunities. And I don't think he's really losing out on too many touches to Austin Eckler. I know that was a question going into the season for the Commanders. Austin Eckler, still a really good receiving back, still involved in the Commanders' offense, but not to the same extent, I think, as some people expected. And just touching on Pacheco's injury again, horrible for him, sucks to see. But Carson Steele is a winner from that injury from week 2. Very curious about the volume going into week 3. But he has promise, rookie running back, and he's playing in an Andy Reid offense with Patrick Mahomes. So fully expect him to get some touches and hopefully make the most of it.
Yeah, 2 points to touch on there. I love Brian Robinson as a winner too. He's kind of like my Ramondre Stevenson type of pick. And I'm just love seeing what he's able to do, especially just being one of the lower drafted starting type running backs. It's just you just love to see that on your team. That way you're just not counting on those early top round picks that will sometimes might backfire.
Frequently. It's called taking a flyer.
Says the high RB guy. And just to be clear, I'm the high receiver guy. So.
For our longtime viewers, we have none. This is our first episode. You'll quickly learn that I overvalue running backs, and I would say that the other Mark overvalues receivers. But that's for y'all to listen to and decide yourselves.
Without a doubt. And for Carson Steele, that's a bold winner, I would say. Respectable, of course, because he will get his shares.
I'm proven. I'll concede that.
Yeah, so we'll see what the kid's got. He's looking nice from just a few carries he's had already. So now let's move into my favorite category, receivers. So I'll just list out my names because I have quite a few. So obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. Living up to that second round price you're paying for him. Nico Collins, good to see him finally just break out for the year. Chris Godwin, one of just the shocking picks. I did not expect Chris Godwin to be this, flying this early in the season.
I got burnt by him last year, so really cool to see him be as successful as he is this year. I'm sure a lot of fantasy managers are happy to have him on their team.
Without a doubt. Again, just another one of those later round, mid-round type of guys that is just, winning you games week in, week out. Malik Neighbors breakout game, kind of an easy prediction against the Giants that Malik was going to see his looks. Yes, against the Commanders, excuse me.
Truthfully, it's fine to be mistaken. The Giants feel like they're playing themselves half the time.
Yeah, and Rashid Shaheed, one guy that I liked, but I just didn't dare myself to draft, surprisingly. And yeah, he's just outplayed Chris Olave up until this point, so you should be looking to start him week 3. Zay Flowers, good to see him break out also. DK Metcalf, Devontae Adams. So these are guys that we expect to produce, and obviously Adams, he's had it a little rough, but he was able to shine this weekend. And then DK, just another classic DK monster performance against my dear Broncos.
See, we'll get to this in a second, but I had Devontae Adams as a loser for week 2, so we'll touch on that later. Again, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, both rookies, both having fantastic week 2. For Neighbors, I felt like they just force-fed him the ball, which seems like the game plan. Gave me a big Amon-Ra vibes from the Lions-Bucks game. Chris Godwin again and DK Metcalf, both winners in my books for week 2. Zay Flowers is a winner. I'm curious about the volume there. I fully expected Mark Andrews, and after week 1, Isaiah Likely to eat into his target share, but he's getting looks, and he's going to make the most of it. My 2 other winners from week 2, one's Devontae Smith. Not just with A.J. Brown injured. I don't put every running back and receiver as a winner because their counterparts are injured. He looked good, and I don't think that Barkley's drop by the goal line is going to have a long-term confidence effect for Jalen Hurts. But I do know Jalen Hurts likes targeting his receivers, and Devontae Smith is performing. I also have Alec Pierce up here as a winner. After week 1, I wasn't sure what his long-term value would look like, whether this was a fluke or not. I'm buying into it. I do not think it's a fluke. Anthony Richardson is going to continue taking deep shots on the field, for better or for worse. And I see Alec Pierce getting those targets more so than I do Michael Pittman Jr. So those are my receiver winners for week 2.
Yeah, being a Anthony Richardson owner in one league, I love that you're buying into Pierce. He's an interesting name for me. I don't know if I can fully buy into it yet, but the results do speak for themselves. Devontae Smith, just one of my favorite players. I love saying Smitty every time, every chance I get. I'm gonna say Smitty. And yeah, we covered those 3 other picks. So
hit me with the big fellas. Hit me with the tight ends.
Yeah, let's go. So I have Brock Bowers as number 1 for me. Kittle, McBride. Who'd you take?
The only tight end I really saw as a winner in week 2 is George Kittle. And I'll get to Brock Bowers in a second. George Kittle always feels like a boomer bust tight end, and he had a hell of a game in week 2. But the tight ends, everyone's commenting on this through 2 weeks. The tight end position looks rough. As a Sam Laporta owner, I know people who drafted Travis Kelce really early on were getting punished.
Completely. You hate to see it. With Kittle, I've always been hesitant to have him on my team just because I've seen those boom and busts throughout the weeks, and it's not my cup of tea to sacrifice for George Kittle like that. But and then Trey McBride, obviously another one of those tight ends that you paid a high price for. He came through this game also, just like Marvin Harrison, just like Kyler Murray. So, hey, maybe there's something in the air for the Cardinals there, right?
Stay hopeful. Stay hopeful.
And yeah, Brock Ballard really has just come out of nowhere, and with week 1 and week 2, he's just been a target monster. So, is this what Oakland's going to keep on doing?
Let's hope so.
Yeah, I sure do.
Now, do we want to ease into our losers and go next to the wild cards, or do we just want to rip the Band-Aid off, go straight to our losers, and then hit our wild cards?
I'd say let's talk some wild cards.
Let's go.
So, get us started.
All right, so my 2 quarterbacks in this out-of-nowhere wild card category. The first being Kirk Cousins. Week 1 looked atrocious. As a Kirk Cousins fantasy owner in one league, I was regretting that decision and strongly considering replacing him. And then he comes back in week 2, puts up a decent game, and that game-winning drive at the end was a thing of beauty. The question for me going into week 3 and beyond is, which was the fluke? Was week 1 the fluke with all the pistol snap positions? Was week 2 the fluke where he looks good and he's distributing the ball and throwing it downfield? I'm really curious to see how he holds up over the course of the season, but they paid big money to get him, the Falcons did, and he's got a ton of talent at the positional players. My other quarterback in the wild card category for week 2 was Jared Goff. He didn't look good, I'll say that much. But anytime you have a quarterback throwing 55 times in a game, that has promise for fantasy owners. And the Lions have a versatile running game with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. They've got Amon-Ra. They've got Laporta, and now Jameson Williams is really coming out. Not out of nowhere, but he's having a great start to the season. So I'm if I could, I'd buy stock in Jared Goff. I do think he's going to have better games going forward, and I thought the number of pass attempts was promising more so than concerning. Who do you have?
Yeah, just a couple notes there for your picks. We'll start with Goff. I mean, yeah, 55 pass attempts is ridiculous, especially, just seeing how questionable quarterback play has been the last couple weeks. It's not what we're used to as fantasy players and as NFL fans. But it might show some things are changing. But yeah, with the Lions, they're just so versatile, right? They can either run the ball, they have all these weapons to throw the ball to, and yeah, I agree with you. Promising that they threw 55 times, 300-yard game for Goff. But when you look at the fantasy points, they just didn't reflect that performance. So
it's not a 1-to-1. Volume usually translates to fantasy points, but yeah, no guarantees there.
Yeah. And no touchdown passes.
We don't have to talk about that.
And Kirk Cousins, yeah, I want to comment that, I'm in one of the leagues with you where you have Kirk Cousins starting as your quarterback, and after week 1, it just, it was just like this cute little quarterback just hanging out there, taking up your QB slot, and obviously you have monster running backs, but
yeah,
it was comical at the time.
He may have cost me week 1, but I'll forgive him if he's playing well.
And yeah, I guess he really made up ground in those last minute and a half in the fourth quarter against the Eagles. For my out of nowhere QBs, I have Sam Darnold and Geno Smith. I'll start with Geno Smith. I mean, we've seen this kind of stuff from him before, but obviously he's not a quarterback that many owners will look to buy into. So that's why I have him here in the out of nowhere. But then my favorite out of nowhere is just Sam Darnold. I'm really buying into the guy. I've liked him since his USC days, and it's just good to see that he's having some success in the league after seeing, terrifying ghosts in the past, right?
As long as he doesn't have mono.
Yeah. Yep, Sam, stay. Yep, no mono for you, man. Stay in the game.
Stay healthy. Stay focused.
All right, let's kick it with the running backs.
Yeah, I see we both have Braylon Allen, and I imagine we're going to have a similar outlook where the number of touchdowns on such few touches was insane. Um,
Absurd.
really good performance from him. I will warn our viewers: don't go fighting on the waiver wire for him. I fully expect uh, Brees Hall to still dominate that backfield and get targets from Aaron Rodgers. So good to see Braylon Allen have a breakout game. By no means would I expect it to be a recurring performance. My other wild card here is J.K. Dobbins, and maybe this isn't quite a out of nowhere wild card given that they were playing the Panthers, but I was curious to see if he could replicate his Week 1 success in Week 2, and he did. And I was curious to see if the disparity between him and Gus Edwards would persist, and it has. It's really interesting to see how many yards he's gotten per rush attempt compared to his counterpart. And I don't know how long Greg Rogan and Harbaugh are going to keep this committee as even a split as they have.
Yeah, the Dobbins performance just gives Dobbins owners all the more confidence in their abilities to just play him week in, week out. So very promising stuff thus far. And yeah, Braylon Allen just he was one of my picks as you mentioned. Looked really awesome watching the game, just flying into the end zone for one of the touchdowns.
His flip scared me.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know it was Brett. I was rooting for Brees Hall to score on one of those plays, and I didn't know Braylon Allen was number 0. And for a second, I was convinced it was Brees Hall, but sure enough, Braylon Allen breaking through the fantasy realm. Yeah, for my second pick, I have Zach Charbonnet. Just really caught me off guard. I mean, who was starting Zach Charbonnet this week or Braylon?
Kenneth Walker, the third owners who wanted insurance.
There we go. So if they did that, good on them. It really paid off. Let's talk some receivers now. I see you have 2 listed.
Yeah, I'll hit these really quickly. One is Justin Jefferson. I have this in my notes that I doubted him pre-draft, and I also have this in my notes. I am a fool. Justin Jefferson's been phenomenal. Sam Darnold, I think, like you said, is performing above expectations, at least that we had. I didn't expect J.J. McCarthy to be a fantastic quarterback as a rookie, and then obviously placed on IR injured. But Jefferson is him, and it's cool to see what he's been doing. I also have Calvin Ridley. Put up over 20 points after barely getting 6 in Week 1. And one thing to note, I don't expect to see it frequently, but it's really cool to see the level of involvement we've seen receivers have in the run game. This isn't just Kyle Shanahan and Deebo Samuel getting some touches in the backfield. Calvin Ridley had a rushing touchdown. We see Xavier Worthy in Week 1 have a rushing touchdown. I expect a couple offensive coordinators or head coaches to call 1 or 2 of these here or there where they get some sweeps in for their quick receivers. But Calvin Ridley, kind of an afterthought for me after he moved from the Jags to the Titans and breakout game in Week 2.
Yeah, I still have Calvin Ridley PTSD from last year. Just, I mean, he was going as a, second or third round pick?
Too high.
Outrageous. And I fell for it. And yeah, I love me some Justin Jefferson, so good stuff there. For my out of nowhere picks for receivers, I have JSN, Quentin Johnson, Yoshivas, and Alec Pierce. Yoshivas, I mean, I don't know who this guy is, straight up. I've heard some talk across other fantasy communities, but I just didn't see this one coming, especially with Jamar Chase being the number 1 option there.
I'll tell you 2 things about him. He's got Joe Burrow throwing him the ball, and he's healthy.
Yep. It's not bad stocks. And JSN, just finally seeing some kind of production after being a high flying rookie last year.
Huge week 2.
We'll see if he can keep it up. I kind of have my doubts about it, but hey, prove me wrong, JSN. And Quentin Johnson, again, I believe he was a rookie last year. I might be wrong, but I remember seeing his name and picking him as one of my high flying picks later rounds, and sure enough, forgot all about it, and now he's back.
Yeah, here's a great plug and play off the waiver wire. I still expect Joshua Palmer to be one of the bigger receivers in the Chargers offense. And then Ladd McConkey as a rookie. Week 1 looked okay. I think that touchdown catch fooled a lot of people, but still has promise. But Quentin Johnson, big game in week 2.
Yeah, I feel like I'm more high on Ladd than any other of the Chargers receivers, but
Agreed.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this thing plays out. Tight ends.
Hit us with him.
We got Hunter Henry.
Yes, sir.
Yes, just out of nowhere. I mean, I have him in a couple of my leagues, and I'm really glad I do because he's now a legitimate starting option. He's out playing tight ends like Kelsey, Andrews. Who am I missing? Evan Ingram, right? And I got Gesicki as my next pick. He looked really awesome in that game against Kansas City. Just moving like I didn't know he could run like that, honestly. So
for us poor Miami Dolphins fans who always rooted for Gesicki, it's cool to see him succeed elsewhere. It's a shame he never really got big volume with the Dolphins. I've got Hunter Henry as well. I didn't expect it. I don't know how consistent this performance will be, but the number of targets and the yardage he got in week 2 is great, regardless of position, tight end or wide receiver. I mean, going over 100 yards on 12 targets is great. And I think with Jacoby Brissett under center, the Patriots are going to minimize turnovers, which helps tight ends in the intermediate pass game. And then also, if Drake May comes back, I feel like rookies like those dump off passes to running backs and tight ends. So Hunter Henry still has promise if Drake May gets thrown in there. My other out of nowhere tight end for week 2 is Brock Bowers. And to me, it's just, I did not expect him to be this good this early. He had a huge week 2. He is probably, if not the primary target at this point, behind Devonta Adams as the secondary target. And there's questions about who's throwing him the ball in that Raiders offense. But Brock Bowers is looking like he might be tight end 1 for this year.
Just a complete stud. Being a Broncos fan, I tend to underplay Raiders players big time. And that's my fault. So with Bowers, obviously, just a tremendous talent coming into the league. I don't mind that, but yeah, the fact that he's this good this early is just outstanding, and I could have never called it. Another point on Henry, we got to give a little credit to Antonio Gibson there. I mean, just seeing the carries he saw this past week was just, another unexpected thing.
Agreed. I almost put him down, and I was thinking about him as a receiving back, but really it's his rushing attempts that caught my eye. A good call out on that.
Something about the Patriots, they're just feeling a little sneaky.
Yeah.
You know.
In the AFC East.
Yeah. Good on them. All right, loser time.
Our favorite. Where we get to criticize multimillionaires who play a sport for a living and are much, much better athletes than we'll ever be. But
so let's get into it. We got Tua Tagovailoa as our first loser. It really soured the mood seeing him go out there on Thursday. Like, I almost just wanted to turn off the TV
it hurt
when
to
it
watch.
happened. Yeah,
it hurt to watch.
It's like something inside me was sick of just seeing this guy go into the locker room, get hit like that, or go in head first like that. So you hate to see it. Matthew Stafford as the next loser. After watching the Rams go toe to toe with the Lions on Sunday night, on week 1, I felt better about the Rams, and it just turned around in the snap of a finger. Losing Cooper Kupp, and now it's your best alternative is just Kyren Williams.
Yeah, they're just falling apart left and right.
Yep, they can only hang their hat on him, and whatever Stafford magic is still there. Josh Allen as a loser. Obviously, Bills got the win. But in terms of fantasy-wise, and where you drafted Josh Allen, probably being the first QB off the boards, he did not produce what you wanted. Probably cost you a game or two. And again, same thing with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, my last loser. Just not what you want as a high-end quarterback. So we'll see if they can turn it around. I mean, I'm not selling Patrick Mahomes low by no means, but we do expect to see some 20-point games coming up here.
If you can find someone willing to sell Patrick Mahomes low,
Do it.
pick him up.
Do
Pick
it.
him up. Losers again. I've got Tua as well. Fantasy aside, I'm just concerned for him. I think a lot of folks are. It's a physical sport, but you just hate to see him fall apart like that. And just wishing him a speedy recovery. He's on IR right now, but that'll impact not just his fantasy season, but also the Dolphins receiving core. I've got Anthony Richardson on here. He's got more interceptions than touchdowns through 2 weeks, and I think historically has yet to throw over 50% of his complete over 50% of his passes in the NFL. So the kid can run, he can throw the ball deep. I think we all saw that touchdown pass in week 1. As an Anthony Richardson owner and starter, you root for him. Fantastic potential, but definitely had a rough week 2. Got Brock Purdy on here as a loser as well. Just first losing a starting running back who also is a great receiving back, and then losing Deebo Samuel for a couple weeks. It's a Kyle Shanahan offense. They still have George Kittle. They got Brandon Ayuk. Jordan Mason is stepping up, but still see him as a loser after what happened in week 2. And then my last loser from week 2 in terms of quarterbacks is Trevor Lawrence. Ever since he got drafted out of Clemson, he looked like the real deal. He can play like that. Right now, he's not there. He's QB 15 right now, so even in a 12-team league, you're not starting him. He has 1 touchdown in 2 games so far and is yet to crack 230 yards passing. Granted, like we said at the start of the show, passing offense in the entire league has looked rough through 2 weeks, but you'd really hope to see more with Christian Kirk, with Gabe Davis that they got from the Bills, with Brian Thomas.
Yeah, Brian Thomas Jr.
That rookie deep threat.
Yeah, I mean, with Purdy, it's like, losing Deebo is huge because he was that guy. He over Ayuk. And then Lawrence, it's like we're still waiting to see the potential tag that we set on this guy. So it just doesn't look like it's gonna come. Running backs, losers. I got Isaiah Pacheco, Joe Mixon, Rachaad White. Who you got?
I've got White as well. I didn't expect Bucky Irving to be as involved as quickly as he has been, and all 3 of those obviously with Pacheco, some injury concerns there. I've got Kyren Williams on my end. Really, he's only relevant right now for his touchdowns and receptions here and there. And he's going to get more volume with the Rams offense looking how it is. But week 2 did not look good. I think he averaged 2.3, 2.4 yards per carry. Really rough to see. I have DeAndre Swift as another loser for the running backs in week 2. Hasn't gotten more than 30 yards rushing. We didn't expect a ton for the Bears offense, but we expected more than what we've seen. And then I've also got Zamir White, similar boat, where he's supposed to get a lot of touches, does get a fair amount of touches, but the output has not been there.
It's all going to Brock Bowers. Wide receivers, as my losers, Tyreek Hill and Waddle, rest of the Miami receivers, for given obvious reasons, losing Tua. It's going to be interesting to see how that affects their value and Tyreek Hill's production, especially. Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs from the Houston Texans. Diggs, amazing week 1, and Dell, we're just still waiting to see him pop.
Yeah.
Xavier Worthy, I was concerned after week 1, even though he had a monster performance, the efficiency just wasn't there, which had me wanting to sell high on this guy and still has me wanting to sell. But part of me thinks that, you just got to trust Kansas City, but I'm just not feeling great about Xavier Worthy at the moment. Michael Pittman, a high, 4th round, 3rd round receiver. Wasn't high on him coming into the season, and it's really showing now that it just doesn't matter who's playing that receiver position unless your name's Alec Pierce, right? Cooper Kupp, affecting just more injuries to the Rams. Jamar Chase, another slowish kind of week, still waiting for him to explode. Brandon Ayuk and Debo Samuel as losers. Ayuk because he hasn't shown what we expect of Ayuk. Samuel was killing it, absolutely, like looking like a complete tank out there, and unfortunately has to go down. And for my last loser, Garrett Wilson, we paid that first round draft money, and we just haven't seen it yet. So I put you in the loser if you're not producing.
Yeah, the only loser I've got on here that you haven't already covered is Davante Adams. So you had his winner for week 2.
Sure did.
And yeah, crazy volume in week 2. I think what's concerning, my note here is see Brock Bowers. I do see Davante Adams losing out targets to Brock Bowers as he continues his ascension early on in the season. And I don't think it's every week that they'll get him the ball 10 plus times and then he'll get 100 plus yards and a touchdown. Again, the Raiders' offense as a whole is very concerning. Davante Adams still has really a high talent receiver, but the upside I feel is rather limited. Week 2 for the tight end position. Who do you have? I feel like everybody, honestly. Go for it.
Sam Laporta, one of my favorite picks from last year, obviously, because you just got him super late, and he just panned out like no other. Yeah, you just can't believe what you're seeing from this guy. Every week, I'm checking, I'm seeing, and it's not happening for Sam Laporta. So, what do you think, being a Laporta owner?
Listen, for years, the story at the tight end position in fantasy football is how sparse it is, and getting guys like Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, Sam Laporta could be league winners because of the lack of talent, so to speak, at that position. Man, it's biting me in the butt. I took him in the second round, I think, this year in our work league. He's a loser for me as well in week 2. I mean, again, Jared Goff, 55 pass attempts. How many do you think Laporta got?
Probably 1.
3 targets. 3 targets out of 55 passes. It's disgusting.
Yeah. So I also featured Travis Kelce in here. Just another one of those guys you're paying a high draft pick for, and he's not even a red zone threat, it seems like. And every pass he catches just seems to be called back for a holding. And those are the only points you could have hoped from this guy. But don't sell low. I think there's touchdowns to come. It's just one of those things where the Chiefs don't want to use this guy during the regular season.
Agreed.
Because, we saw it last year in the postseason. He can still play. But, they just don't care about their regular season, They know how to win these football games. And this is just the price that happens when you're investing into these Kansas City players. My last pick, Evan Engram, mainly because I just took him a little higher than I would have. I took him over people like Dalton Kincaid and some other guys I liked, and that's just bad on me because I didn't know Kincaid was on the draft board. But 0 points week 1, and then he got hurt week 2. Let's see what week 3 holds in store because I want to see Jacksonville.
It's a long season.
Actually, try to compete without a doubt.
You think Kelce would get more fantasy points if the Chiefs deployed Swifties against the referees? Just threaten them a little bit?
I think that would work.
No more holding calls?
Yeah.
That runs us through all of our winners, wildcards, and losers for week 2. What are we looking for going into week 3 and beyond?
Yeah, I want to see more from Isaiah Likely. Maybe he could have been featured as a loser in this list after a tremendous week 1. But this guy just seemed like the real deal in that game. And, you could probably throw in the Ravens too. It's just, losing to the Raiders, unbelievable, man. Yeah, and then, we covered some of the injuries that took place earlier. So A.J. Brown, Christian McCaffrey, Pacheco, Kupp.
It hurt to see.
Puka Nacua.
You never want to see injuries in real life or even in fantasy, but I felt like there were so many for folks drafted in the first and second rounds.
It feels like it's really like humbled me. Week 2 of fantasy football and NFL, just complete humblings because it just feels like it's a completely different league than what I've gotten used to or what we're all used to. Just quarterbacks being able to get at least 250 yards if you're starting quarterback, at least 215 yards, and it's just interesting things, funny things happening across the league.
And to be fair, this is part of the game, right? Maneuvering around the waiver wire, negotiating trades with your fellow fantasy players. But yeah, the sheer number of injuries are shaking up so many rosters. Ayuk probably wouldn't look as good if the 49ers aren't getting injured. We talked about Carson Steele. I have him as a winner after week 2. He's probably not seeing touches, or at least not what he will see in week 3 if Pacheco doesn't go down. So a lot of question marks there.
Yeah, and just diving into that, he's going to have to compete a little with Perrine and potentially Kareem Hunt if he gets signed on. So
you think he's active in week 3?
Maybe not, but it's just something to look out for if you're betting on Carson Steele.
Yeah, I think week 3 is going to answer a lot of those questions when it comes to the Chiefs' backfield. I don't expect Carson Steele to get all the touches, but I am high on him going into week 3.
Fantastic. I think that will conclude our podcast for today. Do you have any concluding thoughts that you want to leave here?
One word of advice to our listeners: we are not professionals. You will not hear about advanced metrics. We will not talk about O-lines or defensive schemes. And please, by all means, do not bet your bottom dollar and your rent on suggestions we have on fantasy pickups. That probably won't end well.
Without a doubt. We're just going off vibes here. So
big vibes here.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.